Hello and welcome to another episode of Tales of a Death Doula. Have you ever felt like life was sending you little messages, like you were having whispers from the universe about which path to follow or what decisions to make? Little breadcrumb trails through the forest of your life, helping guide and shepherd you along your way. These coincidences are called synchronicities, and we're going to delve into the magical world of what these synchronicities mean to your life's guidance. I want to set the intention today that this is more than just a topic about coincidences or superstitions. This is a discussion on how your inner world is connected to your outer world around you. So with that, let's delve into it with another episode of Tales of a Death Doula. My name is Martha, and I am a certified death doula, and that means that I am a non-medical professional who helps provide holistic emotional, spiritual, and practical support with individuals and their families at the end-of-life process. These podcasts are my way of sorting out all of the lessons in studying about death and dying that I've learned about how to live a better life. In today's topic about synchronicities, we're going to explore not just the meaning of how to listen and find the synchronicities in your own life, but also about how these synchronicities usually come at times of great transitions in your life and when you have reached a fork in the road or when you've dealt with great trauma or grief. Synchronicities seem to pop up all around you. Maybe it's just because you're noticing them at that time in your life where you're seeking guidance, and guidance seems to just come from within. So let's delve into the topic of synchronicities and discuss a little bit more about what is a synchronicity and how does it differ from just an ordinary coincidence. So synchronicity is a term coined by Carl Jung. Carl Jung was a philosopher and a psychoanalyst back in the 1940s and 50s. And he coined the term synchronicity to mean a meaningful coincidence that carry personal significance. So when he was developing the term synchronicity, he broke it out into two kind of different parts of what's the difference between a coincidence and a synchronicity. And the difference is that the two parts are when your inner world is reflected and mirrored by your outer world. So what does that mean? So his two parts are your inner world, your thoughts, your dreams, and your emotions. And when you're thinking about something and suddenly there's an event or an occurrence that is matched and mirrored by that thought or that emotion in your outer world, in physical reality. And that mirroring of what's going on in your mind and your emotions being played out in real life around you in ways that are meaningful and that create a personal experience at exactly the right time. So these inner world and outer world experiences are all about the synchronicity of timing and of personal experience. So what does it mean to you to see a feather along your path on a walk? Does that mean something to you? So why it matters is these synchronicities show our outer and our inner world are woven together, and they're woven together on a much deeper level than we are even aware. He called this deeper layer the unus mundus. That's the Latin word for one world, unus mundus. And it's the idea that everything is interconnected and that everything is underlying and underpinned by unity. It's kind of the idea in the traditional Native cultures about the idea of a woven tapestry that holds the world together. And that's kind of what Carl Jung was discussing about your inner world and your outer world being woven together in one world. A way that your inner guidance speaks to you through your outer experience. It mirrors your inner thoughts. The spiritual guidance through this connection, Jung wasn't just being scientific. He wasn't just talking about your inner psyche and your outer experiences. He saw synchronicity as a way that the unconscious, or even the soul, communicates with us. This unconscious guidance acts as like a little nudge, a little wink from the universe, helping guide us to say, hey, pay attention. This is important. Hey, pay attention. This is your path. This is the way. And when we learn to listen to that guidance, to look for the repeated numbers on your smartwatch, if you wake up every morning at 333, to notice these little nudges and these little whispers from the universe that are helping guide your path. So they say that the soul doesn't speak to us in words, but through vibrations and by these synchronicities. That this is the way that it speaks in signs and symbols and archetypes and in resonance. Synchronicities provide a feedback loop between what's going on in here and what's going on out here. There's a feedback loop showing you the way, nudging you along your path, providing guidance. So many times I have had synchronicities in my own life, and synchronicities can come in so many different ways. Through vivid dreams, through repeated numbers, seeing repeated numbers all the time. I will quite often see 1111. Just happen to walk by my kitchen oven and on my microwave, I'll notice the clock saying, oh, it's 1111. Or waking up in the middle of the night and it'll be 222 or 333. Or sometimes having a smell. Have you ever walked through a room and suddenly you smell roses? And there are no roses anywhere around you, and there's nobody with rose perfume on or anything, and suddenly you just smell roses? That's happened a time or two to me in random occurrences. Whenever I'll just walk through a room without any inclination, and suddenly I'll smell roses. And to me, in my mind, that makes me feel like I'm a little hug. It's like a little hug. hug from maybe my mother who's passed on, and just suddenly smelling roses. Roses were her favorite flower. And so sometimes even things like losing or breaking objects can be a little hint, a little wink. Hey, maybe you need to find another way to handle whatever a situation is. If you break a glass, or if you have a flat tire, or if something bad happens, it can also be a little wink or a nudge. Sometimes our guidance might look like, having a flat tire and make you late for work, when in reality, maybe your inner guidance was preventing you from getting in a car wreck on the highway if you had left 10 minutes earlier. So sometimes our guidance might not look so rosy and wonderful, but it's still a way to think about situations in our life. Sometimes even pain and illness, which might seem at the moment to be a punishment, it might be your life's guidance urging you to go within and to take the time to rest and heal yourself. A lot of times we rush around and eat fast food because it's convenient, and rush around in our lives, whereas sometimes maybe you'll have an illness in your digestive system that makes you pause and stop and take notice of your health. Sometimes that's the guidance that you need. All of these are synchronicities, and all of these are all ways that if you notice this happening in your life, finding a feather on your path as you're walking on your morning walk. That happened to me as well. I was walking on my morning walk when I was taking care of my father in his final days, and it was getting pretty apparent that he was losing weight really quickly, and he was looking like it was going to be close to the end, and I knew that. And on my morning walk, I found a feather. It's a big, lovely feather. And I got it home, and I did a little Google search of what kind of feather is this. I'd never seen a feather that looked like that before. It had stripes. It was very pretty. And I found out that it was an owl feather for an owl species. And I had never seen an owl in my neighborhood. I'd never heard an owl hooting or anything. And it really it was meaningful to me to find that owl feather right before my father passed. It was like a little preparation. Owls are very symbolic for transitions and for, I don't want to say death necessarily, but it's for a transitional period in your life. And when I found that owl feather and got it home and researched about what it was, and realizing that, this was a little sign for me to prepare for my father's impending death. To me, that's what it meant to me. And it was very meaningful as a synchronicity. All of these different kinds of synchronicities, again, it's all dependent on what it means to you personally. It's not so much about exactly if you see a repeating number and you look up, what does 111 mean? And you can go on and look on the internet and find out exactly what that meaning of that number means. And that's one way to think about it through a numerology kind of perspective. But also just the very fact that you noticed it, and that you paid attention to it, and that you thought, what does that mean to me in my life? And if you prescribe meaning to that event, that's where that feedback loop that we were talking about comes in. The meaning and the timing and the meaning of it to you personally is what makes it a synchronicity. And so it's just about watching, looking, listening, paying attention. Life is always sending you these little signs, these little winks, these little nudges saying, hey, you're on the right path. Or maybe, hey, don't do that. Go this way instead. All kinds of different guidance that we get. And it happens all the time. And the more and more that you become aware of it, and the more and more that you start to notice, the more synchronicities will happen and will occur because you're paying attention now. You're now listening to your guidance system in your life. And you'll get more and more signs along the way. And it creates an inner bond, an inner relationship with your internal guidance, that you're not just hearing about guidance from your preacher or your shaman or your guru or your energy healer. You're not just hearing about guidance out there. You're actually interacting and building this personal relationship with your own inner spirit, which is the spirit of the divine that lives in you, in your heart. This is where God is. This is where the universe, the universal heart is connected to your heart that beats in your chest. So by developing that relationship, just like you would develop any relationship with anybody that you meet, developing that relationship, starting to notice that relationship signs and symbols, starting to listen and then follow through with what these little nudges and whispers are trying to tell you. Follow those breadcrumbs that your guidance is trying to lead you on. It can build a very strong relationship to spirit and can really create a personal relationship with you and the divine. You are connected to this universal consciousness. And the more and more you watch for and you relate to and you acknowledge these little signs that life is giving you along the way, the deeper and deeper your trust, your peace, your understanding of what your purpose is in this whole life and how you are connected to the whole consciousness of the universe. It can be really, really impactful and really a powerful thing to build your relationship to spirit. So I would encourage you to kind of start noticing, start paying attention, start acting on these little nudges of the universe. I'll give you one more story that's kind of hard to believe because I couldn't even believe it when it happened to me. Of a not just a nudge. This was a tap on the shoulder kind of synchronicity that happened to me. At the time, soon after my father's death, my mother had passed a couple of years prior, and when my father died, I had found out about this death doula idea that you could actually help support and provide support and care for people in their dying process. And I wanted to know more about it. I didn't know anything about how do you become a death doula? How do you study? I don't know anything about it. And I went to bed that night and had a dream. And it was a lucid dream. And your guidance can come through these lucid dreams as well. And in the morning, right before I woke up, I felt like there was an old woman who came right beside my bed, and she touched me on the shoulder and she whispered in my ear, "Call Shevin." And I woke up for real, woke up, and it felt like somebody had whispered in my ear, "Call Shevin." Well, who is Shevin? Shevin was a lady that I had met, goodness, probably 3 or 4 years prior at a yoga retreat, and she and I had kind of befriended each other and friended each other on social media, but I hadn't talked to her in 2 to 3 years prior to that. And so having this lucid dream of an old woman coming to tell me, "Call Shevin." I had no idea what this meant, but I thought, wow, well, that was kind of a powerful dream. You don't have those all the time. And it felt like somebody had whispered in my ear to call this random person that I had met at a yoga retreat several years prior. So I went ahead and I thought, well, I could either ignore it and just write it off as a weird dream, or I can act on this little strange synchronicity. So I went ahead and texted Shevin, and I said, "I just had this strangest dream, and an old woman came and told me to call you, and I have no idea why, but would you be interested in meeting for a drink, and let's just, chat and see why in the world I might have had this weird dream?" And she was like, "Let's do it. Let's find out." She had no idea either. And we met and we were talking just about each other's lives and what's been going on the last couple of years since we hadn't really kept in touch very well. And we were about to pay out, and I thought, well, hey, it was nice to see you again, but I have no idea still why I had this dream. And just by chance, I just happened to mention to her that I had just found out about this death doula stuff, and my daddy had just died, and I wanted to, that I was going to spend some time researching about how to become a death doula. And she goes, "Martha, that's it. That's why you had to talk to me." Her best friend had just gotten her death doula certification, and Shevin knew how to put me in touch with this woman who could tell me all about how to get the death doula certification. How crazy is that? I just happened to go to bed at night reading about this death doula idea, had a random lucid dream saying, "Call Shevin." Shevin knew somebody who could help guide my path to get my death doula certification. How random, how strange, how wonderful, how guided. I felt like this was truly what I needed to do by just having goodness, such a strong guidance to do this work. And it's meant everything to me to study and to learn all of the, not just practical things about learning about death and what is death and how people die, but learning about the rituals, learning about the emotional conversations that can be had, learning about the ceremony that can help people process their feelings and their grief and their saying goodbyes to their loved ones, learning about all the different options that you have about how do you want to be buried? How do you want your funeral to be? Do you want it to be a party, or do you want it to be a somber occasion? There's so much that I just didn't know about death. And it's really informed me about how special it is and what a meaningful transition this can be to make it a good death experience and not so scary. So that's my own little stories about synchronicities and how these synchronicities have shown up in my life. And again, they usually show up in bigger ways when you're in a more emotional state. And usually you're in an emotional state when you're in some form of transition in your life, whether that be going through a death of a loved one, a divorce, an illness. So many of these things can kind of like wake you up to your emotional state, and that's your inner world being reflected in your outer world. And you're suddenly aware, oh, I'm being guided. Oh, I'm being nudged which way to go. And you can kind of like stop at what you're doing, living crazy, and start to really understand that we're always guided. And it's just such a blessing. And it's so comforting to me to know that I'm always guided. Spirit and my soul are always here for me at any point in time. So let's do a little practice. I would like to invite you. Let's do a little mind-heart coherence meditation. We've done this before on the podcast, but it's really important to make that connection because, again, synchronicities are all about merging your inner world, your mind, your thoughts, your dreams, your emotions with your outer world. And you can do that simply by doing a meditation to connect to your heart. So let's take a moment, if you will, and let's meditate together. Take my glasses off, and we're going to just take a moment, and we're going to take a deep breath and kind of ground ourselves. Put your feet flat on the floor. Concentrate on that tailbone sitting in your seat. Take a deep breath and ground yourself on this planet, on this earth that we all live. And we're going to take a moment and just put your hand on your heart. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Indigenous people just say it's all about focusing the intention, focusing the mind on the heart. And by physically placing your hand, it can be your fingers, it could be your whole palm. There's no right or wrong way to do this. The idea is to actually just touch your heart so that you are focusing your mind in physical presence on your heart space. And we're just going to take a few breaths here while you can physically feel your heart beating. And in taking this moment to kind of drop in from your thoughts, dropping them into your heart, you can feel an instant connection. You can feel an instant peace. And we're just going to take a minute and feel your heartbeat. Feel that inner guidance that you carry with you all your life at any moment. Whenever you need to stop the chaos of your mind, to stop the worry, to stop the guilt, to stop the fear, to stop the anxiety and stress whirling around your mind. Simply pause, touch your heart and become still. How did that feel? Could you feel the connection to your inner world? Again, it's that unus mundus, the one world, connecting your inner world with your outer world, your physical connection to your inner thoughts and emotions. It's one synchronicity that you can do at any time, at anywhere. I've done it standing in the grocery line, thinking about all the things I had to do for work and how the grocery prices are, sky high and la la la, all these whirly, burly things, all my monkeys in my mind. And I just stopped and took a breath and remembered my inner world is reflected in my outer world. And it made me feel more peaceful and less scattered. And I took that as guidance, that my inner world reflects my outer world, and that there's guidance to be found there in that unity of one world, the connection between your inner world and your outer world. It really is all about creating that relationship to spirit. And it's kind of fascinating and fun when you start noticing that spirit's talking to you too. It's not just you praying and wanting to manifest and asking for things. It's about spirit talking back to you. There's a wonderful quote by Mother Teresa that says, God speaks in the silence of the heart. And I love that idea that when we silence ourselves, when we start to listen, when we start to notice, just noticing, listening, taking a moment, Spirit speaks to you, and Spirit will guide you, and Spirit will lead you. True, always leads you to your higher self. It's wonderful to build that relationship with your higher self, and I hope that you will start noticing, start listening, start taking those moments of the heart-mind coherence, moments that you can take at any time in the day to build that relationship with Spirit. So, in closing, let's just reflect that synchronicities are not random. It's not just a coincidence. If it means something to you and if it matches something that you were thinking about or dreaming about, then it's your soul's whisper of guidance, helping you along your journey, guiding you into your highest life path. I would just encourage you to comment about some synchronicities you've experienced in your own life. I've told you about my feathers, about my lucid dreams, about seeing the repeated numbers. Sometimes if you're thinking about somebody and then randomly they'll just text you out of the blue, you hadn't talked to them in years, and you just happen to be thinking about them, and then boom, they reach out. That's a synchronicity too. So comment your synchronicities that you've had and you've experienced, And this will be a way for you to start really paying attention and really beginning to notice that relationship that you have with Spirit and how Spirit is always guiding you, always leaving you breadcrumbs along the trail for you to find. If this podcast has been of interest and you've enjoyed it, please like and subscribe below. And join me next time for another episode as we explore more about how death can really inform how to live a better life at Tales of a Death Doula. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a blessed day.